I'd rather watch a film with good intention that's made poorly than a film that was made very well
with bad intention.
With bad intention. So right away, I always go with Star Wars.
Hey everybody, my name is Nick. I'm a director and editor. And I went up to New York City, yes, the Big Apple, to talk about movies. I talked about movies with a video artist named Wash Machine. Wash Machine and I have been discussing a lot about what makes a film a good film. What is the criteria for evaluating a film? We're expressing the value of a piece of work. Most of the time, we're trying to show people that this is something that they should watch. And then sometimes we're saying this is something that you shouldn't watch because it's bad. So what makes something good and what makes something bad, and how do you evaluate that? So we had a discussion about that. We have a little bit of different opinions about it, and that's what makes it pretty fun. So this is our discussion in Brooklyn about the criteria for evaluating a film. How can I make a criteria that actually is going to work all the time?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
Because so much of what film specifically, but art in general, does is it's drawing on emotions, it's making you feel things, it's playing to experience, and like a movie that I watch at one point could mean a lot, and a movie that I watch at another point could mean nothing. But at the same time, there is an element of it that is craft, and you can objectively look at like a movie like the one we watched, Naked Island, and then like the movie that was on TV last night, whatever the fuck that was like silent. Like you can put those two and be like, this is good, this is bad. Like you can do that. Like that's not it. It's kind of obvious. But then when you get more detailed, when you kind of drill down into it, like then it starts to get a little bit tougher. Like when you have a movie like, let's say, The Naked Island, or then I don't know, like Starship Troopers, like they're so different, and so so I guess for me, my question would be for you, how do you go about making a criteria for what gets a 5 and what gets a 1?
Right. I think there's a couple of things to it. One is not the best rating, but sometimes I have to give things 0. You know, a 1 is a movie that, even though it's still a 1, it's something that I feel a 0 is something that should not have been made.
Okay, so 0.
The 0 is like,
this is bad for the world, bad for society.
Right, exactly.
I've seen a couple of those recently.
Right. Yeah, a 1 is also something that is completely wrong, and the intention of
bad.
the filmmaker is fraudulent. Mm-hmm. And there's a certain way that I have of going about figuring out that isn't based on my bias, to figure out how the intention can be told. I think a 2 is a film that has better intentions, but it lost the plot, or it
doesn't work towards its intentions.
You know, probably, yeah, it doesn't work towards its intentions exactly, or, you know, maybe there is a good intention there, but it sabotaged itself because it wanted to be a popular film, or it was copying other movies, or it was like very derivative. Mm-hmm. So 3 becomes a really good score. 3 is a legitimate film that I feel like also has good intentions, but didn't really hit it, you know, on the target, and also might have entire sequences that should not have been in the film.
Okay.
A 4 is a great film. 4 is a fantastic,
really good,
a very good film. And for me, a 5 is a film that, you know, I guess there's very little difference between a 4 and a 5, but a 5, I think, is something that comes really close to perfection in its imperfections, makes it even more perfect. Mm-hmm. You know, and then I think that's why another reason why I like the rating system, because it keeps making you think about, like we just watched Naked Island. We both really like it. It's a very like cool
Yeah.
film, what it's doing. So, right off the bat, maybe your first impression is like, I want to give it a 5.
Yeah.
But then you go back on your list and you realize you're giving everything 5s and 2s. Like there's
okay. So my kind of thing too, a little bit about against the rating system is, let's just give the 5s out. Don't just fucking give them. What are we holding on to the 5s for? Let's give everything, like not everything, but give out more 5s.
Right. I guess part of my enjoyment of is that at the end of the day, I like taking the Excel sheet of the films that I've watched and say, okay, give me only the 5s.
Okay,
Give me the 4s.
It's a way to kind of aggregate the data, and be able to really kind of for yourself separate what you can. It helps you to identify the details, I guess, would be the thing.
That's right.
That the usefulness of
Exactly. Identify the details. Like, for instance, The Big Lebowski. A film that is really connected to my experience as an American, as someone who was a teenager in the 90s, and it's rock and roll music, and, it's weed culture, all these things that really play into my sensibilities and likes and everything. But then you have to think about, okay, well, is it the best Coen Brothers film? What is it, a 5? Does it strive to be a 5? I think a lot of films aren't trying to be 5s, and that's why I don't just dole them out. And I think there's nothing wrong with that.
Okay.
You see, that's why I started with 3. 3 is a good movie.
Right. Well, you gave one of our earlier movie, when we're talking about movies, you gave one of my favorite films, EE. You gave it a 3. And when you gave it 3, I was a little bit like, well, okay.
Right. But 3 is a good film.
But that doesn't mean you didn't like it. You don't think it's bad or anything. It's just...
Right. Well, because bad is so, such a harsh... Harsh. It's really harsh, Even a 2 is not necessarily a bad film. That's why I started out with 0 and 1s are just...
But so you could have a movie that's a 2 that you are like, I love this movie. I like watching it, or no? Would it kind of need to be a 3 for you to say I really like it?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. That's a really good question. Yeah, I think that there's something that happens between 2 and 3 of my rating system, that the intention, right?
Okay.
For me, the intention of the film is, so my philosophy is that I'd rather watch a film with good intention that's made poorly than a film that was made very well
with bad intention.
With bad intention. So right away I always go with Star Wars, And when you ask yourself, and Star Wars, like what its intention is, the franchise, the merchandise, and the hero story, the chosen one, and all these things that I see as extremely detrimental and fraudulent, and a film that was made just to make money
and to make toys
and to make toys and to make a brand, but then also trying to tell themselves that the brand is and can be good, that there is salvation through corporate America. And I think Star Wars teaches us this in the way that it tells a story. I don't want to go down Star Wars
that's
rabbit hole. That's like a whole other thing.
We could talk about that for 3 hours.
Right. But obviously that's the change there, where 3 for me, like it has to have clearly that their intention was to make a film. And so, my criteria is to really look at things in a very, it's not very exciting. It's almost like a who, what, when, where, and why. And those 4 ones, the who, what, where, and why, like the who, what, where, how, are all very easy for us to answer. Who this movie's about, what the movie's about, how they made the film, but the why is always the hard thing.
So that is the most important thing in the rating system.
That's right. The why the film was made. So I think you could easily, like right now, I would have to watch the film a couple more times, but The Naked is a 5. I mean, The Naked Island. Naked Island is a 5. I mean, the film is clearly so passionate with its subject matter. It's
Yeah, and
important, the things that it's discussing. Its courageousness of not using, because verbal dialogue is so much the terrain of literature.
right.
Either
It's
you're,
clearly because another thing that you mentioned to me that you think is really important in giving something a high rating is there something in the movie that it can only be done with cinema?
that's right.
And so the Naked Island has a lot of that, of like the way the whole construction of the film can only be done in cinema. Like the movie doesn't exist.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah.
I suppose you could have a novel where you describe all
No,
the stuff that
but
happens, but it's not the
by
same.
the nature of it, you're still having a narrator, and that's also, a very old school way of a novel, just this omniscient narrator.
Yeah.
It's it makes you think about, novels is doing its own magic on you, but film, in order for me to really see a film, I would have to say that it needs to do something that can't be in a play, that can't be in a book, that can't be in a painting. And you don't have to have every single scene be like this.
But you need something.
But you need those pivotal scenes that could only be in cinema. They're pure cinematic scenes. And I think that, when you look at a film and you say, okay, what about this film makes it a movie? Why did it have to be a movie? Why isn't it a book? And I think you're hitting about it. And Naked Island gives you a great example of watching people's action, documenting the simple act of carrying water up this hill to water these plants, without having to, because the words that we use, and this is so much about what the film was making me think about, the importance of words. The words that we use really determine how we think about something.
Right. So if you were to have it be a book, then you would be using these descriptions, and that would load a lot of how you would experience it. But if you just see it, then you're like really, it's like it's much more primal, like this, like I'm watching this thing happen. You're not, there's no middleman, there's no, because language is a middleman in our brain.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, there's this mechanical thing where you would come with the baggage of its own context of cultural, of whatever culture it was written in, whatever
And then the
language
translation,
was written in,
who
the time,
translated
who
it.
translated it. You get into all these where that's back what I was saying about this is a great film to show those aliens and explorers, because this is a way that you can really see humans and really study them. And, of course, you would have to do something about language, too, because, this film doesn't encapsulate everything. It's really trying to make its very specific point. And everything in the film, him not saying anything and her throwing the water there at the end, all of it, in the context that you've been given it to, is very cinematic, and it would be very different as a book. I'm not sure if this was based off of, well, it said it was written and directed by him. So
Yeah, I don't think
yeah.
so. So, okay, so we have intention, we have, is it cinematic?
Yeah.
What else is involved in, like,
Okay, so, understanding what type of film you're watching, I think. So I'll start off by saying that every film needs to stand on its own. And I think that comparative thinking is less fruitful.
so comparing it to other movies?
Comparing it to other movies, you got to just throw that out and not do that as much. You can compare, at the end of the day, you can compare it to like other films by this filmmaker, and that can help you decide, oh, is it a 4 or is it a 5?
Mm-hmm. And that helps you understand intention, maybe.
Exactly. So, you really just look at the basics. You think about, is it a narrative? Is it a documentary? Is it an experimental film? Is it a hybrid of the three, which makes it avant-garde? So those things really help in setting you up how you should read the film. Is the film experiential, or is the film a storytelling experience? Is it narrative? Documentaries really float between the two. And, so knowing if it's a documentary, that this stuff is supposed to be true, that this is a factual investigation, and what you're seeing is either someone trying to deal with facts or, and so knowing that genre is really important, understanding the time period and the title. So I think it's about where you start with the film, and the filmmaker's intention is revealed at the beginning and at the end of the film. And in the middle, the characters have to do whatever they need to do. But it's up to the filmmaker where the story starts. Why on this day of these people's lives does the movie start? And where does it end? So you want to think about arc. How are the characters presented in the beginning? And where are they in the end? And what is the difference? And that difference of from first scene to last scene really tells you what the intention of the film is, and how you take those changes that happen from the first scene to the last scene and relate it to the title of the film.
That's, you've said that the title is really important.
That's right.
And I haven't heard that much from people, and I think most people don't really think about the title of a movie at all. Like, even probably the people that title their movies don't think about the title of their movie. But I think it's almost like a subconscious. I think I kind of understand what you mean, because I think that there becomes this subconscious element to it, because it's such a, in a way, unimportant part of the whole creation process, and like kind of an easy, like it's not easy obviously, but it's like you're just giving it a title. You're not working to create all the other stuff that happens in the movie. So you're not, like, the movie process of making a movie is really difficult. You have to do all these things. You have to construct this world. The title, you're just thinking of it and putting it there, right? So that part of it isn't that hard, but then, so you can kind of just do it. But because of that fact, it's kind of revealing what you think this is about as yourself.
Absolutely. I can sit there and watch a movie and say, this is about this is about that. But then if I can't take those points and relate it and explain it to the title, then I haven't really done all my work. I think it's my way of getting to that unbiased opinion about the film.
And another thing I like about it is that, like, you can, while you're making it, like, maybe you can mess up because maybe you don't have the resource to do the thing that you wanted to do, or it was difficult or something, like you weren't able to achieve through the creation a certain element of it. But through the title, you can, you can pick that title without any limitation. You have the ability to make the title. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
What I'm saying, like you have the ability to make that whatever you want it to be. There's no limitation of resource of whatever. So you're allowed to pick that title and make it what you want. So you're really communicating what you think is important when you pick the title. And that's when you said that to me, that made me really think, like, ooh, I gotta be more careful about what my title is, because a lot of times when I make work, I kind of, the title, and it's revealing to me why I find picking a title so hard too, because I always hate picking titles for things. I hate it.
It's poetry.
It's really hard.
It's very hard, and I think that, let's take The Naked Island. I think, you can say that this film was important to not, it had to be called The Naked Island, because what's the Naked Island? Japan. Mm-hmm. This film is not about these two very specific people, these two real people, and about how they really lived this way. It's a metaphor for Japan. Mm-hmm. And that's why the film is not called, like, Man and Wife or whatever their character's
growing sweet
names.
Potatoes.
Right, exactly. It's not called that. It's not, it's or their way of life, or this family's way of life, or anything like that, or their last name or something like that, because that would make it about them. But no, it's about the island. And the very last shot, and which is very similar to the very first shot, is these aerial views of the whole island
and the space around it,
right?
And the water.
Because it wants you to think about, quite possibly you can interpret it as thinking about the geopolitical realities of what the film is getting at, and I think it naked, meaning, barren, and nothing growing on it, and also
lack of something.
right,
lack of dialogue.
lack of dialogue, exactly. And the naked also is getting us to show, breaking down the human condition to its most basic fundamental points, where it's like you're naked.
Yeah. That's cool.
But yeah, so
And then, well, then to take it back to like then Star Wars, you have the title Star Wars. So this movie is about just war.
It's about wars, and people always argue it's a science fiction. No, it's fantasy. It's science fiction. It's neither. They're war movies.
Yeah.
They're war movies, westerns. They're like westerns, or westerns are kind of like an adjacent to war films, but they're war movies.
Star Wars,
and they're not good. Because you think about everything in a Star Wars film, all of that imagery, all of that CGI. What part of that is really cinematic? What part of that couldn't just be written in a book? It even has such trouble going from scene to scene because it doesn't know why it's a film, that it has to do these really awkward swipes.
Well, but he took that from Kurosawa. Like, he's doing it because Kurosawa does wipes. That's why he's doing it.
Yeah, but I guarantee you that the wipes in Kurosawa have like some metaphorical resonance to how you're processing the film. And it's also very 50s. Kurosawa is doing those swipes in the 50s.
Right, it's a technique.
Star Wars, that's because they lacked the ability or they couldn't have the money to shoot something to go in between, so they're just, and he's talking about Kurosawa's output. It's like, how many films did he make? So you're talking about someone who's just on to the next one, whereas Star Wars, they're taking years, they got millions and millions of dollars, and it's just because it's so poorly written, they don't know how to go from one scene to the next.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that's the reason for the wipe. I might argue that it's more of a copying of like a thing that is happening in movies and society now, is like you're just taking techniques and not, again, you're right, like I don't think that they're necessarily, they don't know why they're doing it, but they're not doing it maybe because they don't know, they think they're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because it's cool. Like, that is the new thing of like, I saw this, I liked it when he did it, I don't know why he did it, but I'm going to do it because I like this. You have a cool technique, you have a cool thing, and you think, okay, this is what I like, and so I'm going to take it and I'm going to use it, but I don't really know why I use it. I just use it because for some reason I think it's good, maybe.
I think that's what George Lucas is doing with film. I don't think he really has a clear idea why Star Wars needs to be a movie. It's just he knows that you can make a lot of money with movies. He knows that everybody's watching movies. He knows that they're popular, so he wants to make a movie. But there's nothing intrinsically about the story or the way he tells the story that makes it a film. If anything, the only thing in Star Wars, there is an answer. That Star Wars, there is something that makes Star Wars cinematic, it's the one thing that everyone loves about it. It's the lightsabers.
Right. Okay.
So that sound mixed with the image, the visual of this new type of sword.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Its addition to like samurai, right? But I mean, by the middle of the second one, you're already over those things, and it never progressed and matured past that, lightsaber. And especially nowadays, it's the newer Star Wars movies are just video games.
Right. So that is that is like why it's not cinematic. It's like it's a movie. It's a video game. It's not a movie.
Right.
It's a yeah. Anyway, sorry. We shouldn't. Let's steer somewhere else. Let's steer the ship somewhere else.
We'll have to get back to. We'll do a whole thing about Star Wars one day, because not enough people have talked about that movie.
And not enough people. I think if you just touch on it like this, if you just scratch the surface of like bringing these kinds of things up,
right?
Like, people aren't ready. No, like, I don't think people are ready to like want to go.
I know there's not enough of what people. I think a lot of people understand that Star Wars are not the best, but they don't. No one's ever really verbalized it to them about actually what's wrong with it. You just end up being, you're a hater. You don't like it because it's popular. You don't like it because it's considered one of the best films ever, and so you want to not like it. It's considered one of the best films, and it made a lot of money, so you don't want to like it. You want to hate it.
Right.
And I think that there's a lot of very clear reasons. I would love to like Star Wars. Even when I was a kid, I couldn't get to it. But anyway, just to retract the criteria, it's that you need the intention is what's important for me. I'd rather watch a film with good intentions that maybe is the camera work is not great, their acting is bad, or the audio wasn't recorded that great, but its intention was right. That for me, rather than a film that's super slick, has all this CGI, they spent millions of dollars, and I'm left wondering what was the intention of this film,
Right.
And I think that you need to have something that is purely cinematic, that can't be on stage, that can't be in a book, especially. And this is why I really disagree with adapting novels into movies.
Which is maybe 90% of films now.
Maybe 95%. Yeah, I would say they're very, it's very rare that you're going to watch a movie that doesn't already have its foundation in published literature, which makes no sense, because watching a film and reading a book couldn't be different. One of the things that I love about cinema is that it's a group rite of passage. We all come into the theater one by one, but when the film is over and the lights go up, we all leave at the same time. And that leaving at the same time creates a group. It solidified us into this subculture.
Yeah, you walk out of the theater and everybody's kind of thinking at least roughly the same kind of things. They have,
even if they're not thinking the same things, we're all thinking.
Yeah. You're considering the same product.
Right, but we have this sense that a book can be turned into a film, and I don't understand where we got that idea. I mean, maybe some books, if we were doing it justice, then maybe there'd be one or two books that'd be turned into a film a year, if that. But otherwise, when you're reading a book, the last thing you want is someone to reading it over your shoulder. In fact, you can't do it.
You would be like, please leave me alone.
People hate that because it's it's such a one-to-one experience.
And like the idea of turning a book into a movie is almost like somebody reading a book and then retelling the book to you, and like taking out parts and putting in things that they think should be there, and that's kind of okay, sort of. Sometimes I could see how it could be okay if the person who was doing it is really good at that,
and which is very hard to do.
Yeah,
Kubrick.
Yeah. But like not everybody has that skill of being able to do that, and so like I can just imagine like somebody insufferable like retelling my favorite book to me. It would make me insane. I would be so upset by like So I think that's I agree. Like that's a lot of what is happening. It's like people that maybe don't even understand the material that they're working with, then retelling it to everybody. And it's like not fair.
Yeah. And then, you ask yourself, what kind of experience is it? Is storytelling? Is it narrative? Is it a documentary? I think you do need to watch each one of those different genres separate. Is it a horror movie? Is it a suspense film? I think each one of those genres kind of get their own way of appreciation.
I think that's very crucial to be able to segment a movie based on like genre.
Right. There's one thing is to go see some video art or film, like a video installation.
Oh, we lost the light. That one.
A video installation, and then all of a sudden to judge it with something like, Casablanca or whatever, some classic film. I think you have to know that, and then to just really think about the first scene and the last scene and what has changed, how the characters changed. If you think about a film that was important for me growing up, Ferris Bueller: Day Off. It's Ferris's name is in the title. It's Ferris Bueller's Day Off. It's his day off. But at the beginning of the film, he says his line, if you don't stop and take a look around every once in a while, you might miss it. Life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and take a look around every once in a while, you might miss it. He says it in the beginning, he says it in the end. So Ferris hasn't changed. There's no change.
Yeah, the change comes with Cameron.
And his sister, and everyone else except him.
Right.
The dean, who's seen all put together and is in his office, at the end of the day, he's trashed. His suit is all messed up, and he's on the bus like one of the other, like he's just another student. So he gets totally ripped down from his position of power. The sister starts off hating Ferris and upset that she has to go to school and he doesn't. But yet she also leaves and cuts to go chase him, but then saves him. So they're, and also Sloane, his girlfriend, thinks that they're going to get married. He proposes to her at the end of the film. And of course, Cameron has his whole confronting. So just that simple action of, okay, well, if Ferris isn't the one that changed, then this movie isn't about Ferris. So ultimately, it's trying to tell you that you don't strive to be like Ferris. Ferris is not a real person because he doesn't change. What this film showed you is this imaginative take on this almost superhero-like character that couldn't possibly exist. No one could be that cool, So you look to the other characters to find that. And I think doing that and then relating it back to the title of the film, where you are in the beginning, where you are in the end, and how it resonates, how it resonates to the title. This is the stuff that tells you the intention of the filmmaker.